Hello everyone, Storm here, and today we're back with What If Shane Killed Rick, Part 3. In the last part, we had just recently covered the fall of the prison and where the group will go from then, as well as Shane leading the Woodbury community. So make sure you've checked out both parts before watching this one. They'll be linked in the description and comments section. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into Part 3. So now that we're moving on from the prison so soon, we've got a few interesting things to talk about. You see, the original Season 4 was placed 6 months after Season 3's ending. But because Shane's attack took place only a few days after the Season 3 finale, it will make some of the events of Season 4 change quite a bit. The results of this are that Beth wouldn't be taken by the hospital people, since it'd be very unlikely for them to go to the same location months earlier. Or at the very least, the timing would have to be literally perfect for them to intertwine again, which I just don't think makes much sense. Another change is that the Claimers also wouldn't be around that area for another 6 months, so they're out of the picture for our group as well. And while this does seem nice so far, this also means Abraham, Eugene, and Rosita won't appear yet either. That's not mentioning multiple other members of the group such as Lizzie and Mika, who we'll talk about later. I want to cover all of the Season 4 changes first, and then we'll get to Woodbury and Shane. Since they're more like pushed to the side and they're off doing their own thing, it's more important to focus on the things that are actually happening within the canon story. So with that, the group will still be trying to make it to Terminus, as I do think the signs would still be around at this time. Her will try and take more care of Carl since she isn't as injured as Rick was. Shone also bumps into them at some point as well, so that's pretty neat. Len, Sasha, and Maggie eventually find some Terminus signs and end up thinking that the group may have gone there. By the end, all of our groups, with the exception of Daryl and Beth, would make it to Terminus and be taken by Gareth and his people. I think Daryl and Beth will take the role of both Tyrese and Carol here. They find where Martin is and take his walkie-talkie, hearing that his place just found a ton of people. But they decide that they need to go there to try and save what they assume is their group. Carol ties Martin up and basically just takes Carol's original role of blowing up Terminus and saving everyone. By the time he's done doing that, Martin has managed to overpower Beth and cut himself free. So when Daryl opens the door to get Beth, he is off-guarded by Martin, who then go at it with Martin now having the advantage. Thankfully, Beth comes in with the save, hitting a melee weapon into Martin's head, then gets the upper hand and finishes the guy off. Afterward, the two go off to find the group, successfully saving all of them. Then go on with their travels from there, meeting Gabriel and taking refuge in his church. Later on, they go out on a supply run and find the food bank with the help of Gabriel. Since Bob isn't there, Gabriel's cowardice will get Sasha bitten instead. I think this fits the best, as Sasha is still reeling from the death of her brother Tyrese. After returning to the church, Sasha would go outside later that night and get attacked by Gareth and his people. She would wake up to find her leg eaten and would take on the role for the tainted meat scene. Termites are disgusted after they find out about her bite, so they knock her out and toss her back to the church. The group brings her inside, and Gareth and his people attack, but our group is able to apprehend them. Though it would likely be much more difficult considering how many people they're missing. They then kill Gareth and the others, though probably not as brutally. And the group now says their goodbye to Sasha before putting her down and burying her. With that, I feel it's important to cover who we have in our current group, as it has undergone big changes. It currently consists of Glenn, Carl, Carol, Daryl, Maggie, Beth, Michonne, and Gabriel. Oh yeah, and also Judith. So we're missing Sasha and Tyrese, Abraham, Rosita, Eugene, Tara, as well as Rick. Bob is gone, but he's not dead this time since the group hasn't met him. So basically, we've just had the Terminus arc pushed way earlier into the story due to them leaving the prison early. Without the idea to go to DC, the group would probably stay at the church for a while just to process all of the tragedies that they've endured. They eventually run low on food, so they decide to go back out once again. All of them end up being found by Aaron, since he has always gone out looking for people, so him showing up earlier makes perfect sense. The group treats him much nicer than Rick originally did, and they end up taking him up on his offer to go to Alexandria. They arrive and everything seems to be going well for them there. Glenn would be going on runs with Nicholas, Aiden, and their other group that got killed in the original story. It still happens due to the stupidity of Nicholas and Aiden. Only Glenn is a witness of that and tells Deanna, but of course Nicholas and Aiden tell her that it was Glenn's fault and that he wanted to frame it on them. Without Rick, we would probably see Carol taking a more active role in Jesse's situation. After all, she was the one who told Rick that Pete was abusive and also had a really cool interaction with him in another episode. So it would most likely result in Pete attacking Carol, but she is able to defend herself and pull out a stolen gun. She doesn't shoot the guy, but she aims it at him and has a similar moment to Rick where she is seen by everyone. She would tell Deanna that Pete was abusive and that they need to prepare for people and the dead attacking. She wouldn't be as forceful about it like Rick was, so she isn't gonna get knocked out. However, she does refuse to turn over her gun. Deanna is quite upset with this, but Carol didn't go crazy like Rick, so she would have bigger matters to attend to at the moment. I do still think in the ceremony where they decide whether or not they're gonna kick Carol out, he would come in and still kill Reg, to which Deanna gives Carol the okay to shoot him. She does so, and all that plays out quite nicely. And again, this is all far sooner than in the original story, but I think it makes sense for Carol to still find out these things. After all, it'd be really weird if Pete only started his abuse when Rick showed up. Granted, I do still think a good bit of time would have passed before this happened, so we're probably a few months off from the start of Season 4 canonically, but interestingly enough, we're already jumping into the start of Season 6. Group would begin training the Alexandrians, but there wouldn't be a herd or wolves to deal with for quite some time. But now that our main group is at a stopping point, we can finally see how Shane is doing in Woodbury. As the new governor, I would see Shane making the fight arenas illegal, at least with walkers. Letting people fight could be a good if they need to exile anybody, and also it keeps their training gains high. Milton's research would be shut down immediately by Shane, as he didn't want any walkers in their town whatsoever. Now, something to go over really quick is that all the characters who joined the prison group after Season 3 are a bit confusing on where they came from. It's important to note that we don't really have a lot of information as to where a lot of them come from. There are obvious ones like Karen, who was 100% from Woodbury because she was with the governor, or Bob, who we see gets picked up on the road by Daryl through flashbacks, but lots of them don't have specified backgrounds. These being characters who showed up at the prison, such as Dr. S, Ryan Samuels and his two daughters Lizzie and Mika, and probably a few others that we don't really see. It's possible that they could all be from Woodbury and that the group picked them up in the Season 3 finale, as it'd be reasonable to assume the governor wouldn't send a doctor to go fight. Or maybe Ryan was exempted from battles due to his daughters. However, it's also plausible that these were just people the group found during the 6-month time like they did with Bob. Personally, I lean more toward more of them being from Woodbury, so we're just gonna go with that. But if you disagree, I'd just say that they find Woodbury instead of the prison, since it isn't abandoned. So no matter what, all these extra characters still end up at Woodbury this time. Anyway, back to what I was saying, I would see Shane training everyone in the town, even including the children like Lizzie and Mika. While the people are against this at first, they would eventually come to understand why this is necessary. They might get into another war at some point, so it's important that they know how to survive, and any opposition would just be shut down by Shane immediately if they try to disagree. Other important characters who are still alive would be Ryan, or Lizzie and Mika's father, Dr. S, Karen, David, and Martinez. With that checkup done, let's go and see how some of our other characters are doing. Tara and her family will be kind of taking an L since they don't have the governor to help them. Because he isn't there to kill Tara and Lily's father after he turns, he ends up trying to bite Tara. Luckily, Lily stops him, but it leads to her being bitten instead. The two then work together to kill the walker, crying all the way through. After being bitten, Lily knows that she will die and turn, so she forces Tara to take Megan and leave her behind. They reluctantly do so after some arguing, and end up meeting the militia as they did in the original story. The only difference is that they're not led by Martinez since he's currently in Woodbury. At the Grady Memorial Hospital, Noah would sadly be stuck there since Beth never got taken by them in this timeline. A character who would be very important soon is Morgan, so let's deal with what's happening with him. He still ends up meeting Eastman, who teaches him Aikido, and accidentally gets him killed as well. He would then begin his journey to find Rick as he does in canon, but there are some changes. 1, he wouldn't ever get the map with Rick's name on it since Abraham didn't meet the group. And 2, there would be other people around the area like the Claimers, since the squad never encountered them. So I think Morgan would likely meet with the Claimers on his journey to find Rick and would be attacked by them, as he obviously is not going to roll with guys like that. He tries to fend them off, but as he starts to get overwhelmed, a military vehicle pulls up. This makes everyone a bit scared, and that's when Abraham, Rosita, and Eugene step out. Abraham and Rosita aim guns at everyone, and the Claimers start to fight against them. However, they're able to easily kill them before Morgan gets a chance to end it without death. Abraham mentions how Morgan's skills are very impressive, and he thinks that they could use a good fighter like him to help their mission. Morgan doesn't want to at first, but after finding out that it could lead to a cure, and seeing that he has made literally no progress on finding Rick, he decides to join up with them. They all plan to go to Washington, D.C. to find the cure, but Morgan just wants to find his friend. Some time passes as they get closer to D.C., with Eugene messing with their car and causing them to look for other ones. At some point, Morgan gets sick of it and chooses to leave to find Rick alone, which causes Abraham to get mad. The two get into an argument where Eugene finally reveals that he's not a scientist. Abraham then beats Eugene up, causing Morgan to step in and hit Abraham with his staff. This makes him stop and just go to his knees in silence like he did in the show. Rosita and Morgan would be trying to make sure Eugene is alright, with his face now bleeding quite a bit. Morgan realizes that he can't leave them like this, so he and Rosita eventually get Abraham to stop sulking, and they take him and Eugene back to avoid the herd. Let's now jump back to our main group at Alexandria. After we've caught up to the original timeline, we'd see the group find that massive herd from the original story and try to deal with it. There would be some role switches, but I feel like most of the stuff would happen similarly. Like Sasha and Abraham's roles get replaced by Beth, since you only need one person to drive a car, and Rick is replaced by Carol. These wouldn't be exact swaps, but I feel like the gist is more or less the same. At some point, they would be attacked by the wolves, and it would be very difficult to counter since Carol is off doing the herd plan. Luckily, they had been training the people of Alexandria for a few months, so we'd probably see less casualties here. Another thing is that Morgan, Abraham, Rosita, and Eugene arrived during this time. The first three quickly begin fighting the wolves, with Morgan easily handling many of them while Abraham and Rosita gun some of them down. By the end, the remaining wolves are either killed or forced away, and the tower falls over. This is a major breach in the walls, causing a ton of walkers to flood in and beginning the No Way Out storyline. But I think this is a good stopping point for now, as technically we've covered a season and a half worth of content in just one video. Changes here are really starting to build up with a much different Season 4 and 5 happening, as well as Season 6 looking to be a bit different as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this part of What If Shane Killed Rick and look forward to see where their story goes in the next part. But as always, tell me if you liked this video, tell me what you think will happen next, comment your requests for future videos, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, have a great day.